I have an important bulletin from Mrs. Beard herself. She says to please tell her husband that she will embarrass him on the podcast if he leaves spare change in his pocket even one more time. Oh, wait. I just did. End of communication. End of broadcast. I'd like for the people to hear me.
Yes. All right. Fixed.
I have opinions, and I want to share them.
Okay. Official start of the podcast. Hi, Emily.
Hi, Blake.
That's on me. I screwed that up.
It's okay. You do your best.
People on YouTube you will not be seeing that part. Actually, no, that'd be a very funny intro. It's just me talking to nothing.
They'll miss the. I think that's what makes the heart of a podcast is
technical difficulties.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, hi everyone. If you don't know who we are, which I'm sure you all do at this point, we are the I Call Yoshi podcast. I'm Blake.
I'm Emily. I thought you were going to introduce me.
No, what? Have you ever watched any like duo introduce the other person? It's usually like, I'm so-and-so, and I'm blah, blah, blah.
Okay, but then I think we need like funnier titles. Like I'm thinking if in like the McElroy brothers spirit of like they have your baby boy Griffin, and then you got your middleest brother Justin, and then your oldest brother middleest brother Travis and oldest brother Justin. We need something funny. We need to be funny, Blake.
I am funny. I mean, it's not my fault that, you can't deliver. No, I'm just kidding. I'm done.
Podcast, you won't be able to see this, but the look I have right now.
Oh, they can see you.
Well, I know I meant for the later listeners.
Oh, well, I'm going to get killed after this. It's fine. Anywho, cool. So what the plan is for today is we decided we're going to come up with a list. And this is not based on our personal opinions, kind of is, but more so like not based off games that we find to be the most influential, but these are the most influential games that we feel in some way or another shook the gaming world. And we listed them 1 through 5, which we're going to go like swap back and forth 5 and up. So I'll start with my number 5. We'll discuss it. Emily will go to her number 5 and we'll discuss it. And that's going to be kind of the whole shtick. Emily struggled with her list.
I did. And let me say, I want to give a preface to my list before we go into it, is I am not the most educated on the history of video games. And so when we decided to do this list, I was having a real hard time differentiating between my favorite games and that were the most influential in my life versus games that were influential for the industry. And I think I've come up with a pretty good list that kind of fuses, I would say, those two things. Like, yes, they're games I've played and have knowledge on, but for the most part, I do think that they shaped the industry a bit and they brought new elements to the industry and new life to it. So
yeah, I think after this we should do. I think we talked about this too. We should do our own like personal lists. Like what are our top 5 favorite games of all time? I agree. That one's gonna be hard. That one's gonna suck for me. I have played a lot.
I think that would be more fun than like. I mean, coming up with this list was fun, but in a way, I sort of felt like I was trying to phone it in a little bit and like Googling and being like, what are the most influential games? And it kept giving me like Tetris and Minecraft. And I was like, okay, well, I've never played Minecraft a day in my life. So I'm not going to talk about Minecraft or Tetris. I'm so sorry. I did not choose a game that was created before I was alive.
I got lucky because I like everything on my list. I ended up enjoying everything that I played on my list. So I ended up getting lucky. I don't know if you had the same luck, but...
Yeah, I like everything on my list. I've played all the games on my list. I enjoy all the games on my list. And I think I can make a good argument as to why they were not just influential to me, but they brought new life to the industry as a whole. So I'm ready.
All right, cool. I'll start with my number 5 then.
Okay.
My number 5, and I honestly, if we would have done this a year ago, I wouldn't have put it. But I had to put it now because then I really thought about how much it boomed the 2000s. I'm talking about both. There's 2 games. I have a couple doubles, but they're in the same vein. I gotta preface that. I have a couple doubles, they're in the same vein of each other, whether they're in the same genre or the same series.
I'm sitting on the edge of my seat.
Yes.
What is it?
My number 5 is Dance Dance Revolution and Guitar Hero, which shook up the rhythm game market, which is still hot to this day. And you cannot tell me that it isn't.
I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right. I just can't believe you were given 5 choices for video games, and you chose DDR Guitar Hero.
Look, I want you to tell me that those games don't have a massive impact.
No, you're right. You're right. You were giving me PTSD to like being in my parents' basement and like dancing to "In the Army" and like going on my DDR pad. And also all the Guitar Hero I played.
So funny thing is, so my parents are big fitness people.
Yeah.
And one of the ways they're like, you don't have to, get on the treadmill if you play DDR for an hour. I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going to play DDR for an hour.
So much better.
It was I was awful at it. I was terrible at DDR.
Pretty good at DDR. Guitar Hero, I was also pretty good at until you hit the hard level and it had like the orange and I just couldn't get my finger all the way out there.
Yes, 1,000%. 1,000%. All right. I'm trying to think, like, because I still see people on Twitch, specifically Twitch, and I wouldn't have seen these people. There are people who play these like crazy keyboard like rhythm games, and it's this ridiculousness. I don't even know how to fathom that. I can play Guitar Hero pretty okay, but seeing those rhythm games, they're terrifying. It's way too fast paced.
Are you referring specifically to the rhythm game in Club Penguin, where it had the arrow keys, and you had to do the dance club based on the arrow keys? Because that was a really hard game.
One, I swear to God, if Club Penguin's on your list.
I thought about it, honestly, I truly did. I was more thinking of, like, online games for children, like WebKids, Neopets, that kind of thing, but it's not.
I didn't do Toontown, because I was thinking the same thing, I'm like, should I? No, I'm not going to do Toontown.
Well, like, my argument was that they were kind of like a whole wave of themselves, like the online children's games, where, like, you had a pet, and you had a little house.
Right, but those... My whole thing is they don't really exist nearly as much anymore. But besides the point, where we're at, rhythm games blew up. I don't really have too much to add to it. Guitar Hero and DDR. Oh, I do have one thing to add to it, is that I was always like a music head growing up. Like, I always liked all the songs.
You still are.
I still am. I'm a pretentious person when it comes to music. But I always liked anything my mom played, etc. And that Guitar Hero just opened up this new world of like things I had never heard, and I'm like, all right, I'm full in this. And I would play for hours. I'd have friends come over on weekends, and we just do it for hours on end. So
I will say it did broaden my music knowledge a lot, mostly because it had a lot of songs, like older songs that I never would have listened to. And it was just a fun game. Playing the finale of The Devil Went Down to Georgia was iconic.
Specifically, you're right. Actually, if we're getting specific, Guitar Hero 3 with that is, Guitar Hero 3 is the best Guitar Hero. You can't change my mind. I should have also did / Rock Band, but it's the same thing. There's no real difference. But yeah, cool.
Good. Expected pick, but I see the argument for it.
Yeah, the rest should be like more expected. That one was like my oddball. And that's why it's number 5. That's why it's number 5. It's like at the bottom of the list.
All right, fair enough. My number 5, are we shifting over to me?
Yeah, I'm ready. Yeah.
Okay, my number 5 is a classic. One of my all-time favorite N64 games is GoldenEye.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Love that game. And what I learned, actually, in the process of researching this, I learned that it was the first first-person shooter to come to consoles. And that they were only on PCs pretty much at that point, and people were too afraid to not play with a mouse and keyboard. And so GoldenEye was the first one to do that and kind of try to bring that technology in to say, hey, you can play first-person shooters on consoles and it will work. And people loved it. And it was also one of the first video games that was based off of like a successful movie franchise that did really well. I remember my dad playing this game and disgustingly, he like held the N64 controller by the middle thing, which is horrific. If you could, like, just
the
only the middle one.
the N64 controller is a tragedy. It is a tragedy.
It's like my biggest memory of him playing that is like holding the middle thing with like his thumb on the joystick, and I was like, this is just disgusting. So that was my number 5.
Yeah, no, I 1000% agree. You said a lot of things I wanted to mention, specifically what it did to the first person shooter genre, because it is, for one, a lot of N64s are games are credited for like bringing things to the mainstream and making them huge. GoldenEye is one of those for sure. I didn't even have that on my list. That is incredible because it's one of the few first person shooter games that I really enjoy because it's phenomenal, and just playing couch co-op with
Yes.
and screens, like watching other people and cheating that way, it is incredible.
I also want to give a shout out to its sequel, The World Is Not Enough, I think is what it was called.
Yep.
Which is what we played a little bit more because we loved the level on that, and like we played my brother and my friends and I played M was always the villain in our like first person shooter experience, and we always had to kill M, or we had to play like a protect the president type of game from M, or like that. Just such an iconic duo, those two.
There is, and this is on my list either. There is a game that is kind of like a mirror to it, to GoldenEye, and that is Perfect Dark.
Oh, I've heard of that.
Perfect Dark it's very much it's very similar to GoldenEye. A lot of people prefer it over GoldenEye. I haven't played enough of it to know. But it has the same vein as GoldenEye and what it did for the first person shooter genre, which don't get me wrong, I love those games, but the first person shooter genre kind of sucks now. It's awful. Call of Duty needs to stop. But yeah, both those games, 10 out of 10. That's such a good pick. I feel like my list is, oh no, I don't know how well I did.
I love this because like literally 3 hours ago I didn't have a full list ready to go, and you were like, come on, you can do it, and now my list is besting yours.
Okay, hold on. The Guitar Hero DDR is still like 10 out of 10.
No, it was a good pick. It was a good pick. I think you're going to be less impressed as time goes on.
I think you are going to be more. You're going to think mine's too vanilla at the end. Well, we'll see. Okay.
Let's go to your number 4.
My number 4. We're gonna have to. I'm just realizing we're gonna have a lot of filler. We're gonna do after this because we're kind of breezing through this, but that's fine. We have a lot we can.
No, I feel like the longer we go on the list, the more we'll talk. I also have a list of shout outs of like games I almost included but didn't.
Oh, I should have done.
I can go into
honorable mentions. I can come up with a couple honorable mentions. My number 3.
No, you're 4.
I'm sorry, my number 4. My number 4. Sorry, I forgot. I switched my number 3 and 4 on the list. Okay, my number 4.
Ooh, controversy.
Yeah, my number 4 is very, very modern. It only came out like 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago.
Say Kingdom Hearts 3. Say Kingdom Hearts 3.
It's not Kingdom Hearts 3. It's Celeste. And I don't think you ever played Celeste.
I didn't, but I did hear of it.
Oh, no, it came out 2018, 2017. Celeste is an indie game that is it's just a phenomenal indie game. Just the way it feels, the controls, etc. It's a great 2D platformer game. Very hard. But 2, it really shook up the indie world. The indie world has always kind of been overshadowed by, AAA games and etc. Mm-hmm. When Celeste came out and everyone was playing Celeste, it just blew up. The indie industry all of a sudden blew up. It's like they have all these incredible like things that they created without big budgets or anything, and they're better than most AAA games. And that's what even Celeste did that for me. I love Celeste so much, and I'm like, oh, I want to play other things. Like you already know I tried Typo Man and I played Tunic recently. Yeah. Things like that. It's just incredible what the indie community does. There's another game I'm looking forward to that's an indie title that's coming out soon called Billy Bust Up. I've been way more into indie games because of games like Celeste. Not only is it an incredible game, it tackles these it tackles the hard conversations about mental health. It came up, I think, in the Game Awards as like Games for Impact. It came up as the top game for impact based on what they talked like the mental health talks. It was a huge deal. And I will 1,000% stand behind Celeste, and I recommend you play it. Though I know you and I know platformers, and I know you're gonna get angry.
We don't mix. I don't have a high patience. I don't have a high tolerance for platformers. I get angry and I want to break things. But
What's worse about this one though is that you're gonna it's hard. It's not easy. There's an easy mode, I think. It's pretty difficult.
just watch a playthrough.
It's so good. It is incredible.
Like, I'm not arguing with you. I just hate platformers.
I know.
So much.
And platformers is tied for my favorite genre with RPGs, so.
I know. But I'm definitely with you, like, on the topic of indie games. I think I kind of had that awakening when I really started getting into horror games. And, like, basically, at a surface level, people were only talking about big budget games like Resident Evil, Silent Hills, Outlast when it came out. But if you do a deep dive into it, there's so many incredible indie horror games, some that are made in like 24 hours by one team, like, and it just kind of gives you an appreciation for how hard those indie developers are working and how little they're working with, and like they do it as passion projects. And so I think indie games definitely deserve more credit.
Didn't FNAF start as an indie title? Wasn't FNAF an indie title?
Oh, I have not been enough in that world to tell you, but that sounds right.
I don't know I can't say that for sure. But there's so many indie games. I think you sent me one too recently.
Yeah, just a couple days ago about this guy who had been hand painting.
Yeah.
Like not with a tablet or anything like that. Just physically hand painting a video game for 7 years, and it looked so good.
I'm following this other guy on TikTok right now, and he's creating it's a music rhythm RPG type game where you have to hit to the beat. I think it's called Sword of Song or something like that, Song of the Sword, something like that. It looks incredible every time he releases a new like thing for it, a new. He doesn't have a trailer. It's not a trailer because all he's doing is showing his progress in the engine, but every time he shows something, it just looks incredible. So.
That sounds very cool. You definitely have to work to find the good ones, but like it's worth it. And usually you can get them for so much cheaper than you can get like those AAA titles for. And a lot of times they're just so much better. And sometimes a little more off the wall.
Let's not forget that Among Us was an indie title.
Yeah, and they do get really popular. Like there have been smaller horror games that have gotten popular that were indie titles originally.
1000%. Are you ready for your number 4?
Yes, my number 4 is a combination of 2 different games.
Okay.
And I think each one of these games was very influential on their own. But then I also think the genre of these games kind of took both of them and combined them into one, and then went from there. So the 2 games are The Sims and Harvest Moon.
Yeah. I'm interested. I'm just surprised you didn't put Animal Crossing in there, but continue. I'm yeah.
Well, I think Harvest Moon came first, and I think Animal Crossing is kind of a combination because, like, The Sims on one hand is like a life sim, like you make your own characters. It has this level of customization to it, and it also has this freedom to it. The Sims is essentially a never-ending game. You can play it until you're bored out of your mind. You can play it for thousands of hours. There's no real conclusion to it. The story is what you make it. And then you had kind of the Harvest Moon genre that was also a little bit of a life sim. Like you could get married and you had kids, but you had more of like a to-do list, a story, a plot. You had this farm, you were fishing, you were helping your neighbors, you were growing plants, and it came to a natural conclusion at some point. You beat the game. And I think those 2 kind of morphed with Animal Crossing and then Stardew Valley, where there is no end to the game, and there's a freedom. You can do whatever you want. It goes on forever. But there are more like to-do tasks, like you can have a farm, and you can go fishing, and you can talk to your neighbors. And I think Disney Dreamlight Valley, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, and I mean, you literally can't watch a Nintendo Direct without getting like 30 different like Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing-esque games. Maybe like this one has a special dragon with it, or like it's a cafe, but I think those 2 have really kind of started that genre together, like all the way back. Like I think the first Sims came out maybe 2000, maybe like 1999 or something, and Harvest Moon came out even before that. So I think they really set the tone for that whole genre.
I think the first Harvest Moon was on the SNES. Don't quote me on that though. The one I played was on the GameCube, and that was A Wonderful Life, which is still by far
That's
my
the one
favorite.
I played.
We just got a remake of it, but now it's called Story of Seasons of Wonderful Life. But it's the same game. It's
Yeah, that's the one I played first.
because it's an actual absolute treasure. And let's not forget, they there was a lot of controversy later on with A Wonderful Life because, of course, you could only marry the three girls, and there was like not many options, and you couldn't go outside of that.
Kidding me? Get out of here. The male protagonist you had the beautiful girl who worked at the bar.
Yep,
You had the sweet farmer girl who was also beautiful.
which was the
and
correct choice.
You had the girl who played the piano.
Yep.
And then you had the like punk chick. You had four great options.
I thought there was only three. There was.
Oh, I think it's in Another Wonderful Life. When you can marry Luna, the girl who plays the piano. So you do get a fourth.
Yes. Okay. See, I didn't play Another Wonderful Life, which can be a girl protagonist, mind you.
Well, let's talk about that one because I just mentioned four great options for the boys. The girls got the hobo who lived in a tent and had a long beard. You got the guy who didn't wake up till 1 p.m. And then you got the guy who lived on the farm who was in love with Cecilia. And when you talked to him, he heavily implied he had an alcohol problem. So those were the three choices the women got in that game.
I'm not going to go into the intricacies of what I just unpacked because I didn't play Another Wonderful Life. But oh my goodness, does this sound like the 2000s of what?
Yeah, like I'll send you a photo later, but like don't even start with like you didn't make many good romance options as a boy. You got beautiful options compared to what the women got.
The farmer was the best one. The farm.
Oh yeah. I also married the farm boy, even though he had an alcohol problem because he didn't live in a tent.
And he wasn't a hobo.
And he wasn't a hobo, and he woke up at a regular time. Post the photo, and I will share some photos of that later because holy cow!
Let's just talk about how farmers wake up at unrealistic times at like 4 a.m. It's just like no. But I've only played a little bit of Sims, and I'm talking.
Oh my gosh!
I went to a friend's house. Who was showing me because he had The Sims, and he was showing me the one specific thing. I'm not going to mention what it is. The one specific thing you can do with the romance option. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm not going to.
How you make a baby?
That's true. They had a specific word for it. It was called woohoo.
It sure is called woohoo.
And that's the extent of my Sims playing. That's all I've done in The Sims was watch my friend do that. So I didn't even technically play it.
Okay, hold on. This is a video. Oh, maybe not. But I'm posting this in your Discord, Blake.
Fair enough.
I'm gonna post it under photos of life.
While she's doing this, just know that this episode is sponsored by us two and our Twitch channels. Me, who streams multiple times a week, The Bearded Blake Show, and her, who sometimes streams Emily Jean 33.
I need to get back into it. But there you go. I've shared it.
All right.
The Sims is fantastic. If we're gonna talk about The Sims, because The Sims should be praised because like. Yes, it's an incredibly popular game and it's a fun game in itself, but the ability that game has to never end. Like, not only is it kind of like a scenario where the players can keep finding the fun and keep making new Sims and new families and things like that. The last Sims game, The Sims 4, I believe came out... Oh, I don't even know. It's been since 2012, maybe longer.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
And they're still releasing expansion packs for it. They just released like a whole new ranch expansion pack. Like I say every couple of months they have a new update for it. And yes, you have to pay for them, but like the ability at which you can keep getting new content and new worlds and new items and things like that. And it has such a large custom content creation system. Like you can download, there's so many creators who make things and there's like an active system for downloading those into the game. So I think I think The Sims should be rewarded for how well it does at its longevity.
I actually have a friend, and she's played it since 2012, and she buys the new expansion as soon as it comes out every time. And if
That's so much money.
Well, you got to think since 2012 though, and they come out a couple times a year, and they're like $5 a piece.
No, Blake. No. Let's go back. They come out multiple times a year, and they're about $30 to $40 a piece.
There's no way they're $30 to $40 a piece.
Blake, I just bought the ranch expansion.
Oh
pack,
my
like,
goodness!
Days ago for $30. I wanted to own a horse, Blake. I wanted a horse, and I did it, and it was $30 for that expansion pack.
Yeah, no.
I'd say there are about 10 expansion packs, and then there's like 25 stuff packs, which is just like some furniture.
I think she does the stuff packs though, because she does the smaller ones. Yeah. Okay.
Those are cheaper.
Cool.
So that's my number 4.
It's a good number 4. I'm gonna go number 3. I was at a toss up. I didn't put both, but I was at a toss up. But it's the same series of what I was toss up for. I could either go with the previous entry, which is where it kind of started, but I went with a newer one. Because this is also the game that never ends. I went with the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim as my number 3 pick. Now,
I think that's a valid one.
Yeah. Now, technically, I could have gone with Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind or 4 Oblivion. More so Oblivion, because Oblivion kind of shocked everybody when it came out, but not like Skyrim. It did not shake the world like Skyrim did. There's so many hours of content you can do. I think it was only recently that somebody has officially done everything you can do in Skyrim.
That's impressive. I knew Skyrim was the game that never ended, but I thought that was kind of more just out of like sheer force of will.
No, there's just an endless amount of things you can do. And this is the thing Bethesda more recent, what they do with their Fallout series and what they do with their Elder Scrolls series is that there's always choice. What you do affects the rest of the game almost all the time. What faction you choose, what choice you make. Do you kill this person? Do you keep them alive? Do you give them money? There's just so much choice and so many different outcomes you can get for whatever you do. It's insane. I got the game when it came out back in 2011. And remember, Skyrim's still coming out multiple times a year. And it's 2023.
Never end.
It will never end.
I think Skyrim's big contribution to the gaming industry was Thomas the Tank Engine as the dragon.
That was my next point.
Really iconic.
You mentioned modders before. You mentioned modders when it came to The Sims. The modding community for Elder Scrolls games and Fallout games are unmatched.
I've seen some.
I ran around with a Keyblade and the Majora's Mask Moon in Skyrim.
Oh my gosh, so Griffin McElroy did a series where he was playing with a friend and his friend installed like 20 mods per episode and Griffin had to like try to spot all of them and he did the Keyblade too.
So here's another really cool thing about the modding scene on that. People have gone out. They have spent years developing full new storyline quests. Like
that's so
20-hour storyline quests that they mod into the game and it just works. Like Bethesda likes keeping they're not Disney or Nintendo. They will open their stuff up. It's like, all right, have at it. Have a good time.
Have fun.
Why do you think they can get away with releasing the same game multiple times for 12 years and then still we don't have Elder Scrolls 6 anywhere in sight?
Because people are still that's impressive. That definitely rivals The Sims in terms of its longevity.
I wouldn't say rivals, but yeah, no, it's just oh my goodness, it's still being played today. I know one of our friends, Wolf, still plays it with a bunch of mods all the time.
I've played it a day in my life, but I know so much about that game and I've seen so much about that game that should be a testament to how influential. Like at this point in my life, I've seen multiple playthroughs of Skyrim and I still have yet to see a single person playing Minecraft.
Yeah.
So,
I know plenty of people who play Minecraft. I'm just not one of those people.
No.
Minecraft was became bigger for the younger crowd. I think Minecraft was great when it came out, but it just got boring really quick. And now it's very much a younger crowd thing. Though people build Minecraft, like a playable version of Minecraft in Minecraft.
That's too much. That is like on par with like the episode of The Office where Dwight makes a second life within Second Life. He makes Second Life for people who want to remove themselves even further from reality. That is like what we're on par with right now.
All right. That's all I have for Elder Scrolls.
I think that was a good one. That was a good one.
I've had this itch to play it again for a long time, but every time I start a new game, it's just like going through the beginning. This is the one downside. It's going back to level 0 and not really being able to do a lot. It sucks for a while. It sucks for a while. So
that was a good pick.
And your number 3.
My number 3 is Assassin's Creed 2.
Okay.
Which is the beginning of the Ezio trilogy. And mostly so this one mainly for mechanics. Like, yes, I love the story of Assassin's Creed 2 and everyone loves Ezio. But Assassin's Creed was, as far as I know, one of the first big stealth open world games. And it also introduced a lot of mechanics, the parkour system, the sneaking system, especially the eagle vision, is still being used in other games to this day, you know, like being able to see through walls, being able to see your enemies, like, in ways you shouldn't. Like, even The Last of Us used basically the exact same mechanic as eagle vision to be like, hey, here's how you're going to get through your encounters. You can, like, hear through walls all of a sudden for no reason. That's not something Joel should be able to do, but you can do it. And that all kind of gets traced back to Assassin's Creed. And I think it opened up the world a lot with, in terms of, like, not having those kind of invisible barriers and being like, hey, I see a building that's really tall. I want to climb it and see what I find at the top of this building. And there's going to be something there. Or, hey, I'm going to climb up here. And when I get to the top, there's going to be a lookout point, and that will synchronize my map for me. And, like, elements like that you can even find, like, all the way in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom with, like, that kind of, I see something, I'll go climb it. Let's see where this leads me.
I was about to bring that up. I was about to say, yeah, Breath of the Wild fans, it wasn't the first.
It wasn't the first. Assassin's Creed really said you can climb anything you want to climb. People will laugh at you, but, like, go for it. But, like, the whole climbing towers in Breath of the Wild, synchronizing the map, definitely traces back to Assassin's Creed. And then, of course, I have to mention Ghost of Tsushima, which in itself is just, you know, you and I have both listed that game as one of our all-time favorite games. Mm-hmm. And honestly, we just have to admit that game wouldn't have been possible if Assassin's Creed hadn't paved the way for it. Pretty much all the elements in that game lead back to Assassin's Creed.
Ghost of Tsushima is what Assassin's Creed should have become, but didn't.
Yes, exactly. And so I think a lot of other stealth games as well kind of all just got their roots in Assassin's Creed and a lot of the elements from it. And not just to mention that the game itself is so well done and the story is so interesting. So I definitely think Assassin's Creed, I think 1 was very good as well and very influential, but no one talks about 1 the way they talk about Assassin's Creed 2, and just, like, the way it perfectly hit everything. Not my favorite Assassin's Creed, but I think the most influential.
It is my second favorite. No, it's tied for first. Because between that and Black Flag, those 2 Assassin's Creed games are 10 out of 10.
I just read they're remaking Black Flag.
I hope so, because that game deserves love. It is.
I would play that.
You've never played Black Flag, right?
No, I haven't.
It will. I know how much you love Syndicate. I
do love Syndicate.
You'll love Black Flag more.
Okay, so they are remaking it. So for those of you who don't know, and I've never brought it up, I went through, when COVID started, a phase, and I had started it a few years before, where I was trying to platinum every single Assassin's Creed game. And then I made it to Black Flag. I wasn't going in order. But I didn't do Black Flag because the platinum for Black Flag still required you to get a lot of trophies in the online system where you had to, like, play with other players. And I heard it was pretty relentless and pretty tough, and I just don't even know if there's that many players left to do it with, and I didn't feel like
it's 2023. We should not have online trophies unless it's an all online game. Fall Guys makes sense. The Last of Us and Assassin's Creed, no, don't do it.
Please stop.
Yeah,
I don't want to play with other people online unless it's a game specifically made for that. I don't want to do it. leave me alone.
I
So I would definitely say I'll play a remake if they get rid of those trophies.
I'm glad you mentioned the tower thing, because as soon as you said it, like a light bulb popped in my head. I'm like, oh man, it's true. Breath of the Wild copied. Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like, that was kind of Assassin's Creed thing for a while. Was like you couldn't, and they changed this in later games to just kind of be like you can unlock the like what's in the area. But like I remember 2 specifically was so daunting for me because the map just looked like a mess of pixels until you climbed the nearest like viewpoint, and then when you got to the top of the viewpoint, you synchronized, and then you could like the map became uncovered.
Yeah. No, two is incredible. Two also has a relatively easy platinum, from what I understand. I never got it, but looking at the
Yeah.
list, it's not crazy.
2 wasn't bad. Brotherhood was my really terrible one.
I thought three
I
was
also want to
worse.
mention, I also want to mention in the spirit of things that it inspired. I can't remember if it's Brotherhood or the original 2. Leonardo da Vinci makes you lots of different inventions, and you get a paraglider at one point. So I thought I'd just throw that out there and mention that Assassin's Creed was the OG.
Nintendo, you want to say something? Please don't send a cease
It
and
was
desist.
terribly done. It was terribly done, and it was awful to control, and it made me want to break my television a lot of the time in ways the paraglider in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom does not. But definitely set up a lot of elements, I think, for other games to kind of follow.
We're already episode 3, and we've already gone back to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. Wow. Wow.
We're gonna go there some more. Definitely one on my list is gonna go back to that series,
Well,
and I think we all know which one.
my number 2 is going to go back to that series if you're ready.
I'm ready.
My number 2 is A Link to the Past and Ocarina of Time. I did them together, and there's a reason I did them together.
Okay, share your logic for doing them together, but I probably won't fully talk about Ocarina of Time because you also know that's on my list.
I know, but well, thanks for the spoiler. I know what spot it is for you too. Don't worry. So the reason I did them together is because one, sure, you can look at Zelda 1, you can look at Zelda 2. Well, not even you can't look at Zelda 2. Don't look at
I
Zelda
don't want
2.
to.
Don't look at Zelda 2. You can look at Zelda 1 and talk about that game's influence, but it truly did not really bring the 2D RPG style action adventure game like A Link to the Past did on the SNES. A Link to the Past is one of my favorite 2D Zelda games. It's not my favorite. It's not my favorite, but it's very high up there. And what it did for the 2D action adventure RPG style type games. Top down view.
Which is what?
What do you mean? Which is what? The item, the exploration, the dungeons. There's a lot of games.
Yes,
Yeah.
tell me. I've never played it. Tell me.
Well, I want you to play it. But there's like the really nice thing about A Link to the Past is that it felt like the true beginning of the Zelda formula, where original Zelda is rough. Original Zelda is very rough. A Link to the Past truly felt like, all right, I need to go into this dungeon to get this item, to get this thing, to do this thing. It really started that Zelda formula of get the item so you can progress in these other areas. Original Legend of Zelda kind of did that, but it did it very, very poorly. Ocarina of Time, as much as I talk about Ocarina of Time, really amplified that into the 3D space.
Did you guys just hear that? Blake said
Shut
something
up.
nice about Ocarina of Time.
I told you I like Ocarina of Time. Its soundtrack
It's revolutionary.
is unparalleled. It's definitely
Unparalleled.
not. It's definitely not my favorite Zelda game. It's not even in the top 5. But I do
Not even in the top 5.
I know.
Oh, dear Lord.
crucify me in the comments, YouTube, and in the chat.
Please do.
However,
He's wrong.
I can't necessarily knock off how influential it was overall to the industry to 3D.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just look at future Zelda games. Look at Look at my favorite, Wind Waker. And then A Link to the Past influence, of course, my second favorite, or tied for first favorite Zelda game, Four Swords Adventure, which once again, roast me in the comments, YouTube. And then, I mean, look at further Zelda games. You have Skyward Sword, you have Majora's Mask. There's just it really exploded. Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I think, are separate because they don't truly have that feeling of Zelda formula. So I won't put them like as they influence those. But there have been so many different like action adventure dungeon type games that have come out since. It's
Absolutely.
just unparalleled what a 3D game could do. Now it's not my number one spot because I think one did it a little bit better. But I can't deny it's just it was incredibly influential. It's not my favorite.
Well,
I recognize that it's a good game though, and I know it's a good game. It's just definitely not my favorite.
well, since we're already talking about it, I might as well just lead into mine because I'll just move it to my number two space because these two I could have done either one on. So one of mine was also Ocarina of Time, and I think
Are you moving that from your number one to your number two? Because I know it was your number one.
it's my number two right now.
Oh, okay.
And I think everyone saw that coming. I think everyone saw that we were going to have to mention Ocarina of Time. Not only as I think the most influential Zelda game, but I think one of the most influential games of all time. Even if you don't think it's one of the best games of all time. Like, there's no denying what it did. Like, you know, and there's stuff that I didn't even know. Like, when we first announced this, that we were going to do this, immediately my mind went to, okay, Ocarina of Time, obviously.
Both of
But then
ours
when I
did.
kind of yes, instantly. But when I started researching it more, I learned a lot that I didn't know came from Ocarina of Time. Like, yes, I knew the 3D world, and it was much more of an open world and a bigger world than that was used to. But I didn't realize that the Z targeting, like being able to lock onto an enemy and strafing, all came from Ocarina of Time. Like, that started there. Fast travel, with the different songs you could play, started with Ocarina. There's just so much which is just kind of incredible. Like, it's, you know, Nintendo almost got lightning in a bottle with transitioning from a 2D world to a 3D world and hitting so many. And I just don't know if it's because they did it first, like they were the first ones to do it, or they truly just had this level of genius to have so many mechanics that would go on to pretty much be in every single like 3D video game from here on out. Like, I can't think of a big 3D open world game where I can't lock onto an enemy or fast travel in some capacity.
I could be incorrect. I think there was some form of fast travel in A Link to the Past, but I may be misremembering. And I know there's fast traveling in Mario 3, but it's not to the same degree. So you're still correct. And I agree 1,000%. But
Also just a bigger world too, so I think the like fast travel meant a little more when you were dealing with something. And like now we
Yes.
look at it, we're like, Ocarina of Time's map was so small. But like at the time, it was so big. And I also, you know, something else I learned was it was kind of one of the first games to take it from, and maybe Link to the Past did this as well, but to take it from the tutorial and like explaining all the mechanics to you through like elements where they had to like take you out of the game to be like, hey, let's go over here and now we'll do this tutorial kind of thing, where like they kind of just like threw you, and it had like the fairy. Like, we all agree Navi can be infuriating.
I'm sorry. Hold up. How
I
did
know.
you-
I knew as soon as I said it.
Hold up.
I know it's Navi, but like as a small child, I didn't know it was Navi, so I called her Navi, and that has just always been the way I do it. And I've had to like physically change myself to say Navi because I know that's how it's technically pronounced. But I remember I played Ocarina of Time for the first time when I was like 6 years old, so before I could read. So yeah, roast me all you want, guys. This is 6-year-old Emily coming at you to pronounce it Navi.
You were saying about Navi,
There's
though.
so many. There's so many other things in that game I pronounce incorrectly. Anyway, like, she will guide you. Like, yes, she can be annoying, but like she will guide you and like tell you what to do and what buttons to press when you need it, and kind of give you those context clues to help you figure it out. Which was new for the time. I mean, there's just really no. I also like. Sorry, I'm like kind of just thinking of all these things that I researched at the time when I was looking into Ocarina of Time. It also kind of did the first because it was 3D and kind of open world. A lot of times things were very linear. And yes, Ocarina of Time is still a linear game. Like, you have to get this and then do this and then do this. But like as soon as you leave the forest, you can see Death Mountain off in the distance. And even though you can't really get there at the time, you know it's like an end game for you. It's somewhere you're going to go. It's something you're going to have to do. And so it kind of started this thing of like, and I remember seeing this when somebody played I'm gonna say it wrong, and then you're gonna laugh at me.
Say
Because I
it.
always got these games mixed up. Elden Ring.
You said it right. You got it right. You didn't say Elder Ring.
I was gonna say Elden Ring. I had to really think about it.
But pause real quick. Let's tell this story real quick of why this is so funny. Is Emily texts me at one point asking if Elden Ring and I don't remember the exact question, but it had to do go along with the fact that Elden Ring is a sequel to Skyrim, which it's not. And I said, Emily, you know they're not the same universe, right? She's like, yeah, everybody knows that. And she kept calling it Elder Ring. And
Scrolls. Is Elder Scrolls not a Skyrim game?
Elder Scrolls is Skyrim. Yes, those are those games.
Okay.
Elden Ring
so
is
here's what I thought. I thought it was Elder Scrolls, and I thought it was Elder Ring. So in my mind, I was like, yes, Elder Scrolls, Elder Ring, same series. Didn't know it was called Elden Ring, and they were in fact in no way related. I really thought when everyone was talking about Elden Ring coming out, I was like, oh, finally, like they're coming out with the next Skyrim game.
Nope. As soon as she texted me, I don't think I had laughed as hard as I did with anything Emily has said in my entire life.
Really uninformed. I don't play those games, but it was not a great moment. I think I was talking to Nate when that happened, and he was like, "What are you talking about?"
Yep.
I was like, "No, Blake knows what I'm talking about." And so I texted that to you, and you were like, "No." All right.
That's when you realize how bad you messed up.
I'm the one in the wrong here.
Okay, cool. Cool.
Wait, hold on. I was in the middle of the thought.
Let's back to Navi.
Well, the thought was that I kind of had this thing where you looked out and you could like see these places you could go and things you could do. And I remember watching someone play Elden Ring, and when you walk out, there's that huge big tree that's very glowy, and it's like kind of just like that thing of having you walk out into the open world once you leave the tutorial area, and there's something big and large and looming, and you know that that's something you're gonna have to like. I mean, I would even argue for Breath of the Wild. You like do the little cave area, and then in the moment you walk out, you can kind of see this big open world in front of you and all these things you can do. And I think that also kind of comes back to Ocarina of Time.
And same with Tears of the Kingdom. You walk out of your sky cave and you see the whole Sky Islands.
Yeah, and you know they definitely copied all of that from Skyward Sword. So I would say Skyward Sword is the most influential game of all time in my heart.
My eyes are rolling in the back of my head.
Wasn't Groose? If we're gonna name influential video game characters, I'd say Groose takes the cake.
We have another episode idea, is what you just told me.
Everyone will know. My number one will be Groose.
Okay. I think we're running out of time, so before we get to our number ones, I think we should quickly go through honorable mentions, real quick. So,
okay.
How many honorable mentions do you have?
Oh, I have a lot. I just wrote down all the ones I thought of, but I wasn't gonna like go into depth.
Oh, no. We shouldn't. So let's do like 3 apiece.
Okay.
All right. One of my honorable mentions, this was on my list and I got rid of it. I replaced it. Final Fantasy VII, specifically 7 is on my list.
That's a good one.
Yep. Okay, go ahead.
I had The Last of Us.
Yep.
Just because it was such a big game and I loved it so much, but I couldn't really think of a valid thing that it had done for the industry as a whole, other than just everyone really loving it.
Yeah, I had Chrono Trigger as another one. I've technically never played Chrono Trigger, but that I know is like huge in the RPG space and how influential it was.
I had PUBG because that kind of led into Fortnite and those like battle royale type games and that whole like thing that went off.
I almost added that to my list as my number 5, but I kept it off. And there's a reason I kept it off, but we can talk about that in the after party.
Okay.
And then I think for my last one, and the fact that it's not on my list is probably shocking, but I'm going to do it anyways. Kingdom Hearts is the other honorable mention.
That's a good one. Mine, I had a really funny one, but I'm going to go with Breath of the Wild because, and I mentioned this to you before we started, which was that it felt so revolutionary at the time it came out, but like the more I thought about it, it was revolutionary for the Zelda series because the Zelda series had such a strict formula,
Yeah.
and this did not go with that formula at all. But when you look at Breath of the Wild, and it was so popular, but when you look at Breath of the Wild from a wider lens, you're like, this is just another open world game. Like, everything that's really new and exciting about this is great for a Zelda game, but like in general, it didn't bring anything new to the table.
I want to hear your funny one now.
My funny one was Farmville.
That's incredible.
Because, like, truly, I think it started a revolution where, like, every mother on Facebook got into gaming
Yeah.
and, like, was sending you all those things that was like, please give me, like, 3 likes so I can get a cow for my farm in Farmville. And I was one of those people, even though I wasn't a 40-year-old mother. And now look at where we are. 20 years later or whatever, and every mother is on some kind of mobile game app.
That you join a clan and you say, hey, give me more lives for Candy Crush.
Yeah, it also like started the kind of microtransaction system, like, and the social media influence of like, give me things so I can get more in my game. And
I'm glad I never
that kind
played
of
Farmville.
I played it a lot, and then that led to me to playing Petville, which was better. Anyway, that was my funny one. But I do want to have a lot of time to talk about my number one. So go tell your number one now.
Okay, and I want a lot of time for my number one. My number one is another double. They're the same series, and it's like almost the same reason, but I think it did a lot better. Not a lot better, a little better. Okay. I went with the original Super Mario Brothers and Super Mario 64 for my number one.
I knew you were gonna have to. I like thought about doing both of those, and I was like, no. I know for a fact Blake's gonna have Mario on his list.
I had to because, all right, one, Super Mario Bros. For the and the NES kind of saved the gaming industry. If we didn't have those, we'd have no gaming industry. That and Donkey Kong as well, but we'd have no gaming industry. Shout out to E.T. for the Atari 2600 that almost destroyed the entire gaming industry. I'm not even kidding.
Poor E.T. Poor E.T.
It was a terrible game. The Super Mario Bros. That's specifically for Super Mario Bros. I mean, it is a fantastic 2D platformer. I think even someone like Emily who doesn't like platformers can get behind Super Mario Brothers on the NES.
I have played a lot of Super Mario, like not the original one, but like the games that came out for like the GameCube and the Wii and whatnot. I have played a lot of those.
Oh, you mean the 2D ones?
Yeah.
No, she hasn't. No. Okay, that leads me to my next one though, which will go more inside with what you're saying with this Super Mario 64.
I love that game.
Super Mario 64 is a phenomenal 3D platformer. I don't want to quite call it a collectathon yet, but the amount of games that it inspired throughout the years, throughout the entire PS2, GameCube line, there are so many games that I have played that are like inspired by it. I played the Sly Cooper games, the the Tasmanian Tiger games, Jak and Daxter games, Banjo-Kazooie, all these different. That was the age of 3D platformers really exploding. And of course, the Mario franchise just kept expanding on it. You got Super Mario Sunshine. You have the 2 Galaxy games. You have 3D World. You have Odyssey. And they're just going to keep pushing them out. And honestly, I feel like the 3D platformer space has not been as strong as it used to be. But in those beginning years, it was a whole different time. And that was some of my favorite times of gaming. I've been wanting to go back and play some of those 3D platformers, not just Mario 64, but other 3D platformers that I grew up that were definitely inspired by those. Little
Big Planet. Big Planet was a big one that I played that is just so very directly inspired.
Oh, and that because of course with Mario 64, no matter however you get to where you need to go, it's not incorrect. Let's go back to Tears of the Kingdom for a second. It's same with Little Big Planet.
Leave it alone.
Little Big Planet really pushed you to be as creative as possible to get to where you need to be, and even creating levels. Just, I can't say enough good things about it. I want to go back and play the Tasmanian Tiger, which if you haven't played that game, it's about a Tasmanian tiger from Australia, and it's a phenomenal 3D platformer. I
think that's a good one. I definitely thought of both of those for going on my list, but I was like, no.
You knew I was gonna
I
do
trust
it.
that Blake has these. He's got these under control.
Yeah, if I didn't,
It had
I'd
to
be
be
mad.
mentioned.
Huh?
I definitely it needed to be mentioned. They are like nearly. I would say they're nearly as influential as Ocarina of Time, if not equal. If not equal.
Yeah. I think they're very close. For me, and just mainly because of the once again the beginning years of the PS2 and the GameCube and stuff. I think that's why Mario 64 really is a little bit more. But I digress. I mean, I'm sure you have some things you want to mention on it, but
I mean, specifically to Super Mario 6, I didn't play Super Mario Bros., but I did play a lot of Super Mario 64. I never beat that game because I played it a lot as a child, and I reached a certain point where I got lost. Mostly, a lot of the time when I walked out to like the little place that had all the booze in the courtyard, and I started getting really confused. So I did get a little lost in that game, but I loved that game so much. I don't even like platformers, and I think it kind of opened up this element of like, you know, like Super Mario Bros. Or like games like that, it kind of, you go from one level to another. You know, there's like no real like time in between, where Super Mario 64 kind of had like this, you could explore the castle. There were things to find. You had to work to find the levels. You had to work to earn the levels. Like there were different little secrets you could uncover in the castle that I think made it a little bit more enticing for maybe people who weren't as interested in like the platforming aspect, to be like, these were full worlds you were going into. And yes, there was platforming to them, but, you know, like, think of, like, the penguin level, where you went and you could, like, slide with the penguin, and, like, you could get the little baby penguin, and, like, you know, have a little fun time with that boy. Like, there was more than just the platforming to it.
there was so many different worlds. You did so many different places, so many different environments. It didn't feel like just one game. It felt like a bunch of smaller games compacted into one.
And it was so enchanting to jump into painting. It felt so good to do.
Emily play Super Mario 64 and beat it this year. Add it to your list. I will say,
never beaten it.
So there's a popular game called Only Up right now, and someone made a mod where it's Super Mario 64 mechanics, and you're playing Super Mario 64, and they changed everything. So you're just climbing as Mario with all the mechanics, and I plan on doing that relatively soon on stream. It's gonna be hard and frustrating, but I'm gonna love it.
But it's going to be great. And I'll watch you do it, and I'll laugh, and I will think, I never want to do this a day in my life.
Cool. Let's move on to our final one. Your number one.
This is the one I'm most excited about, because it technically was never really a game. But it changed my life. It changed my life, and it changed, I think, the genre forever. And, of course, it's going to be the Silent Hills playable teaser, PT.
Yep.
Developed by Hideo Kojima, that never saw the light of day. But honestly, like, for me personally, it got me into horror games, like, and rightfully so. But for the horror genre, I can't even begin to describe what this game did. Like, horror games up until this point had a very, like, big formula. They had slow build up, and then they had a jump scare, right? And all of these jump scares were very orchestrated. Like, every scare was meticulously planned by the developers to get you when they wanted it to. You know, you pick up a key, it's written in the code that you're going to turn on, there's going to be someone there to jump at you. And the kind of horror that comes here is not just, I mean, like, it's aided by the fact that the graphics were incredible, like, it felt real. But the AI that they brought in with Lisa herself, she has a few moments where she is, you know, scripted to give you a little bit of a scare. But her AI was randomized in such a way that you could play the game the whole way through and not see her once outside of those scripted scares, or you could see her 12 times. And she had so much that she could do. She could be outside of a window. She could be up on the balcony. Or she could watch you. Or she could possess you. Or she could kill you. Like, you never knew what you were gonna get. And that made, you know, horror games don't have a lot of replayability because you know where the scares are coming. But PT had this intense level of replayability because every time was going to be different. And, like, in a way that even, like, if you were sitting next to Hideo Kojima himself, he could not tell you when Lisa was going to come out and get you, you know? And, like, there were so many theories about that, too. Like, there was even a thing, like, for a while where they were like, okay, well, if you pause the game and you leave it on the pause screen for too long, Lisa can get you there. And so you never felt safe. And so And I think this one for me is so good because I watched it happen. Like, we played it when we came out, and I watched the industry clamor to make something on that level. There were so many copycats and remakes and like people try to get that lightning in a bottle again. And I don't know if they ever really have, games like Visage, Madison, not Dark Deception, Conjuring House, Layers of Fear, like a lot of those, the constant loop. And it like also changed the way, sorry, I know I'm talking a lot. I just have so
you're
many.
fine.
It changed the way horror games give you a story. Like a lot, and I've always hated this mechanic. In horror games, a lot of time you're picking up notes. Like whoever was in this house before you or whatever has decided to leave you very descriptive, detailed notes on every ghost they saw and everything they went through to kind of feed you the story. And that always felt so lazy to me. And Kojima gives you an incredible story with lore and all, but you have to work for it. You have to earn it. By listening to the radio, by reading things on the walls, by unlocking pictures, by getting the secret ending. Like, there's just so much to uncover. And, like, it's a brilliant work of art. And the amount of games since then that have tried to do the loop, or maybe have tried to make a villain like Lisa, or just try to capture that kind of, it could happen to you, right? Like, PT literally starts off by saying, this is a game, it can't hurt you. And in the game, you hear about a dad who killed his daughter, and he told her to come out because it was just a game and he couldn't hurt her. Like, that kind of parallel, like, it's just a game, it can't hurt you, but, like, it could happen to you. Like, so many other games, like, trying to make it about a family in their home, like, and I don't think, some games have come close. Madison, Visage did an incredible job, but I don't think anyone's ever been able to capture the kind of genius that PT managed to get, and the kind of renown and popularity it got for a game that doesn't exist anymore.
PT was the only Silent Hill game I've ever played. It terrified me to no end. I never fully recovered from it.
Me either. And I love horror games. Never fully recovered.
I will say there's one horror game that overshadows PT, for me at least. That's Luigi's Mansion.
If you say Outlast, I will. Oh my god! I was like, I'll accept it. If you had come out here with like Outlast, I literally would have come through the screen and murdered you.
Outlast was a game. You already know this. I didn't love Outlast. It was
like, it's not good. Like, and I think like it comes back to the exact same thing that I'm talking about with PT. The AI is not good enough. They have like the people you're trying to avoid, they walk in patterns. Like, they have like a little route that they're taking. There's no randomization to it.
Which is no longer AI, because the AI is supposed to learn from your movements and learn from that, which it doesn't. It just walks in a pattern.
Like, I can honestly tell you that, like, because PT takes place all in the minute 11:59, but when you get to the extra level, it turns to midnight, and you hear the bells chime and a baby cackle. Still, like, to this day, when the clock grows from 11:59 to midnight, I have this little trepidation of fear. Like, that game I played it for the first time in 2014, and here, talking to you in the year 2023, I'm still afraid of Lisa. My friends and I will sometimes, because my friend has it on her PS4, we sometimes will get together and be like, let's play PT, and we open it up, and we're like, no. Like, just opening this up has scared me. I am afraid. And I don't really get scared by horror games much anymore.
I think what we can learn specifically from PT is that Kojima and Konami kiss, make up, release the game, make Emily happy. That's all we need. It's not that hard.
So much money. Like, Kojima, oh my god, I don't know if he will ever capture this level of brilliance for me again that he did with PT. Like, it's phenomenal. And like, honestly, if you're into the horror series, you know the level of impact that it had on every game made thereafter.
You don't want to play Walking
Simulator? It set a bar.
You don't want to play Walking Simulator 2020 by Kojima?
I mean, that's essentially what PT is.
Oh, I was talking specifically Death Stranding.
No, I played that one for like an hour, and I kept dropping my dead bomb's body in the river on accident, and then having to chase after, and then dropping it again, and then peeing on stuff. So I'm okay.
That is also that. See, there's two levels to Kojima. Like very very cryptic yet like parallels and everything and understanding, and then there's pissy walk simulator 2020 with Death Stranding. Well, also I've never played the Metal Gear series, but I know people like swear behind the Metal Gear series, and they're some of Kojima's best work.
Played one of the games, and I very much enjoyed it. To be fair, I played it with a gun that I shouldn't have had that gave me like 80% camouflage at all times and like stunned everyone, so I had it really easy, but it was a good time. Still, like, there's so much, and like if anyone's interested in this, I have a lore video I can show you, but like the way he feeds you the story in that game is just, it's a work of art, man. Like, you have to work for it. You have to put it together. There's so many if you're willing to put the time and energy, there's so much you can uncover. And like even those little pieces, you know, talking about like the dad told the daughter it was just a game, and like the game telling you it's just a game. Like, just so many ways that it gets inside of your head to be like, wait a minute. I mourn the loss of that game every single. If I could go to the store and buy it to own it, I would. Well, no, maybe I wouldn't, because I'd be a little afraid to have it in my home where I live. But just pure genius. So that was my number one. It had to be.
That's a good number one. I think that's a good number one. You said it's not really a game. It's long enough to be a game. I mean, I think it's long enough to be considered a game.
Like, depending on the time you're willing to put in, it's anywhere from like 15 minutes if you just go through it to like an hour and a half. So
on that note, we are about out of time. So real quick, once again, we're not sponsored by anybody. We're still very, very new to this. This is only episode 3. So any support, we really appreciate it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, leave a comment down below, feed the algorithm, help us out where you can. Come follow me and Emily on Twitch, twitch.tv/thebeardedblake and twitch.tv/EmilyJean33.
That's me.
We will be back in the next 2 weeks. Do you want to spoil what our next one is or no? You don't know.
I don't know. I know what it is. It the one that we talked about right before this started?
I think so, yeah. All right, we talked about it before.
All right, it's going to be the top 5 most influential games to us personally.
That or favorite games. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The games that impacted us the most. The top 5 that impacted us.
Yeah. So.
And our gaming journey.
And I think they're 2 different conversations. Because those are going to be these 2 lists I made, completely 2 different lists.
Oh, yeah. Well, some of my list might be similar. It's going to be different. It's going to be like, they're going to be on there for different reasons, but like some of those will still probably be.
On that note, if you want more content, we will release the after party on YouTube right after this. So make sure you come hang out there. If you want to be part of the after party, make sure you join us on Twitch every other Wednesday. If you can join then and you still want to watch, we upload here and Spotify every other Friday. The Friday after we do the podcast. And yeah, cool. We're going to go ahead and start the after party. Goodbye, everybody else on YouTube.
Adios, amigos.